Good evening and welcome to Ullevål in Oslo as the road to South Africa continues on ESPN with this vital World Cup qualifier between Norway and Scotland. Alongside Janusz Mihalik, I'm Adrian Healy, and Janusz, this is Group 9. The Netherlands have already booked their spot in South Africa. The question is, who can finish second and claim a potential playoff place?
Well, both claim that they can be, second in this group, but reality is different for Norway. A must-win situation, of course, in a situation that they're in right now. For Scotland, given the group, normally the second place always goes here, but I think they have to get the 3 points because it's going to matter, who's going to make that playoff spot. As you see it here right now, Scotland in the driving seat, and you would think that maybe a draw would do them a lot of good here, but I just think they're going to have to go for 3 points. And for Norway, as you see it here, I mean, they need 3 points. There are no questions about that.
Yes, Norway, the words out of their camp suggest that they believe they still can finish second, but surely it would take 3 wins in a row to do that. Scotland feeling they need 2 wins from their last 3 games to book at least a second spot and a potential playoff place that would go with it. George Burley called it the most difficult decision of his 18 months in charge. Who to play tonight? We'll bring you the Scotland and Norway team news next. Welcome back to Oslo. This is the Scottish team news. George Burley ringing the changes, Janusz. And no place up front for the man you thought might have been playing there, James McFadden.
Yeah, I think it's a function of a different system, maybe 4-3-3, more attacking one. As we mentioned, Scotland needs to win, and in comes the wingers, and I think that's where the surprise with Ross McCormick and Commons coming in. But you're right, there's no place for Paul Hartley as well. Graham Alexander is going to play in that holding spot right there. So still on paper very, very good. And Norway, for me, as I mentioned, underperforming tremendously, yet they have so many great footballers there.
Yes, names you will be familiar with. Perhaps John Carew, of course, of Aston Villa, Brady Hangeland of Fulham, and John Arne Riise, one of the 2 Riise brothers playing tonight. Brothers on both sides of the ball, with Gary Caldwell and Stephen Caldwell partnering in the centre of defence for Scotland. Norway coached by Egil Olsen again, Janusz. She was a miracle worker first time around for Norway. He's going to need to be a miracle worker again.
No, I tell you what, in his first match, it was in February, Adrian, you and I did that game away to Germany. It was a friendly where Norway won and looked very, very good. It wasn't just a win. They outplayed Germany, and that was his first game again after coming back, and they look good. So I suppose sometimes you have these managers that just by showing up, obviously want respect and do get that respect. So I think in a situation like this, it's in your hands to continue the chance of going to the World Cup, and playing at home in front of their own supporters should be enough of motivation for this Norway team.
The 2 captains, Brady Hangeland and Darren Fletcher, exchanging pleasantries. There'll also be a goalkeeping appearance tonight for David Marshall in the absence of Craig Gordon. The Sunderland stopper unable to recover from his injury, so David Marshall getting his first place in goal for Scotland for over 5 years. A lot of responsibility on his shoulders, perhaps.
Absolutely, George Burley to make some changes, significant changes. You just mentioned the goalkeeper. Of course, we look at Callum Davidson. Of course, that's his first cap since 2002. So a lot riding on this game. You have to make those decisions, and I think maybe the future of George Burley lies in this game and on the changes that he's made, because the ones that we've mentioned, perhaps unpopular amongst the supporters, but all that matters is the result, and if he gets it right, as we see him here, he's going to be the hero.
So it's Scotland in the white shirt and the dark shorts who get us underway, kicking from left to right in the first half. Will it be another night of tartan tension? Both Scotland and Norway looking to get to the World Cup finals for the first time since 1998. And surely no margin for error for either nation tonight. An early chance for John Arne Riise to deliver one of his trademark long throws, perhaps. And he does just that, but Alan Hammer, the referee from Luxembourg, unhappy with some of the jostling. John Carew in the thick of the action.
Well, and there's been talked about, of course, Norway being very, very direct and Scotland being a passing team. I kind of find that funny. In years past, it would have been the other way around, I suppose, or at the very least Scotland. But you see reset with a long throw-in. You know, this is the directness. I don't think they're going to apologize for it. The first 10-15 minutes are always important. It is a cliche. However, I think it's going to be important here for Scotland. I think once they get the ball, they have to knock it around and look for quality and see if we can get the away goal, because I think that could be important psychologically, of course.
Well, goal scoring has been a problem for both nations in Group 9. Scotland have scored just 4 in their 5 games. Norway, even worse, have managed just 2. And it hasn't been for lack of opportunities as well. The Norwegians, speaking of the points and the goals that have got away in previous games. And a sense of determination to try and put that right tonight at the expense of Scotland. Early confidence exhibited at the back by the visitors. Hutton slipping it through to Graham Alexander, who will be playing a holding role tonight in midfield behind Fletcher and Scott Brown, it appears.
And those 3 are going to be very, very important, because if the idea is, of course, to send Cummins and McCormack forward, obviously on the wing, and in support of Kenny Miller, a support that very often when I've seen Scotland he didn't really get in the big matches, then obviously Graham Alexander is going to have to hold, is going to have to be very, very disciplined. This man Scott Brown, of course, coming off an injury, so you never know where he stands with his fitness. And of course you have Darren Fletcher, who for me is one of the most underrated players in the world. He really is. I think he's been tremendous for Manchester United, of course, and for Scotland as well. And tonight he is the captain.
Scott Brown, the ex-Hibernian man, into his 3rd season now with Celtic. Some question marks over his fitness, perhaps. He's coming back from a long layoff. John Carew, 8th all-time in terms of appearances for Norway, 7th in terms of goals. He's scored 21 for them, but he's scored for nearly 2 years in a match that means anything for his country.
Yeah, not sure what the foul was. You saw John Carew, and if there were any questions about Norway being directed, we've seen it already in the first 3 minutes. 3 or 4 long balls towards this man, of course, very, very capable target man. And the idea was for Stephen Caldwell to be marking him. It was his brother Gary Caldwell this time around. I didn't see any foul, to be quite honest.
Well, plenty of support, as always, whenever the Tartan Army travel. Amazingly, the stadium actually not sold out tonight. The Ullaval holding at 25,000 in capacity. Estimate at 18 or 19,000 actually here. Plenty of Scottish flags. But a corner to Norway. Conceded by Gary Caldwell. It's the first time the 2 Caldwells have started together since Bertie Vogts' final game in charge of Scotland back in 2004 against Moldova. Stephen Caldwell trying to get to grips with Carew. It was a vital header away under some severe pressure. And not only that, Scotland able to mount a counter-attack, which was quickly extinguished.
It's a good idea off a set piece like this. There's a lot of traffic and there's really not a lot of support in bringing that ball out. But see Risa delivering that corner. It's the right pace, right direction, just nobody on the end of it.
And Risa's brother Bjorn Helge Riise, also in the Norway starting lineup tonight for that man, Gil Olsen, who's 67 years old now. Returned on an interim basis in January. And Scotland need to put their passes together and are rewarded with their first corner of the game, behind off Ketil Weiler.
That's well done by Kenny Miller, the way he got rid of him right there. A little bit of deception. Fortunately, the cross wasn't the best, but they do get something out of it.
John Knudsen trying to get his defence organised as Ross McCormack shapes to deliver this. The Cardiff City man. A right-footed delivery. Wasn't best dealt with, and a real mess of it by the Norway defence. Well, they had 2 opportunities to get that clear, and in the end, it fell to the captain, Darren Fletcher, who blazed it too high. Yeah,
this should have been clear right here, and look at John Carew, the second chance right there. That's got to be done much, much better. Sigh of relief, I suppose, from him, because Darren Fletcher should have done much better with this one. Perhaps surprised, really, that it came to him like this. And you see Gary Caldwell gets in the way as well. And I think the captain would have liked to get this one back.
John Carew in the wrong penalty area, almost handing it on a silver platter to Scotland.
And you're saying that he does get an excuse for that one? And they've got to be able to clear that ball. Just get that feeling, though, that something might come out of the set pieces for either team, really, in this game. Both fully capable and very good in the air.
There's a clattering challenge by Risa on Chris Commons. Commons providing the width on the right. And spirit of adventure from Risa. Not a bad pass either. John Carew, though, is offside. The Scottish defence well marshalled in a high line.
Yeah, all in unison, everybody stepping up, although it was very, very close. You see Stephen Caldwell was the one that in it. There you go, that is that step, which we don't see it on the far side, but I think they got it just right. You live or die by these sometimes, and it is important that all four in the back are on the same page on these.
Norway still searching for their first victory in Group 9. Astonishingly, 3 draws and 2 defeats. Their only goals came in a 2-2 draw here against Iceland. And their last game in the group was a 2-0 defeat to the Dutch. The Dutch confirmed their place in South Africa with that victory. This is Alan Hutton. And such an injury-ravaged campaign last year with Spurs. Only 5 appearances. The ex-Rangers man. Fletcher helping it on. Callum Davidson able to settle. A probing long ball dealt with by Tom Hogley, the right back for Norway.
Yeah, really no nonsense approach from Norway, really. And I think if you're Scotland, you got to be really smart and disciplined in the way you play, especially in the back. We've mentioned that offside trap that we just saw. I think they got to keep somebody a little bit deeper, because it seems to me that every chance Norway gets, they're looking for John Carew. They're looking to play over the top. And I think you don't want to concede that much space behind your back four. Other than that, it could be an easy game for Scotland if they're able to keep possession, keep the ball just a little bit.
Oh, Risa almost allowed Commons to sneak in around the blind side.
The question is, was there a push? Perhaps a hold right there. Didn't look at first.
John Arne Riise winning his 81st cap for Norway tonight, 6th all-time in their appearance list. Forward for Carew. Picking up the scraps is Grindheim. Oh, not a good header away. Morten Gams Pedersen trying to convert it into something positive. And maybe should have done a little better. Morten Gams Pedersen, the Blackburn Rovers left-sided midfielder. Angeland propelling it forwards. Carew winning the ball in the air.
Yeah, but I tell you, I mean, in some ways, this is easy for Scotland. I mean, if you give me that opportunity and this sort of tactical plan, I think, you know, I mean, Scotland very capable of defending in the air. Just got to make sure that when the players go out for the ball, there's always somebody covering in the back just in case there's a run from behind. But right now, it's pretty predictable and easy to read, if you ask me. You can do that all day, which is very naive. And we sort of saw it coming. We knew that it would come from Norway, but at some point you have got to show a little bit more quality and the ability to keep the ball at times.
And George Burley deciding to go with the attacking approach tonight. And 2 wide men, McCormack and Commons. And Carew, his frustrations bubbling to the surface, and a booking as well. We tangle with Gary Caldwell.
Yeah, it has been Gary now, and I think the referee got it right this time around. You see a bit of a push and an elbow in the back. Both players fighting for it. As I mentioned, there was a run being made in the back. Good cover by Scotland just in case. You really have to be careful, because I think sometimes you may get caught ball watching and seeing what John Carew is going to do, and obviously he's going to try to knock it down, continue that ball, and it's the runs from behind that are going to be a very, very important. So far, so good. At least if you're Scotland.
John Carew, the most prolific period of his career has been in England with Aston Villa. He scored 24 goals in the last 2 seasons. Well-travelled, Spain, Italy, Turkey and France amongst his previous stops.
He's had a tremendous second half of the season for Villa last year.
Graham Alexander. Alan Hutton down the line for Commons, who loses out. No nonsense challenge from Risa. Immediately Carew is the outlet. Rather isolated. And doesn't have the ball anymore, thanks to Gary Caldwell.
Yeah, Gary Caldwell owns Carew at the moment right now. He's got the confidence. You saw already a little bit of frustration from Carew being booked, so he's going to have to be careful.
Karen Fletcher, the captain.
And Agent, this is important. This sideways and backwards, not necessarily a bad thing right now. Frustrate Norway a little bit. Let him have the ball and send those long balls here. Patience right now, good build-up. That's exactly what Scotland needs.
Hutton's ball. Easy pickings for John Knudsen, who made his debut in the October fixture between these two sides at Hampden Park. We'll come back to that because Hooscliffe's on his way. Carew winning the battle to keep it in play. And now Pedersen. Morten Gamst Pedersen. Risa slowing it down. Little tip in from Hoseth, but coolly done. Back to David Marshall from Callum Davidson. David Marshall, whose last appearance for Scotland was back in 2004. He conceded 4 in that game against Sweden. He's made his debut in the Championship this past weekend for Cardiff City. The free kick given against Ross McCormack. Another Cardiff City man. He was the second top scorer in the Championship last year. What an impact he had, Yanis. 23 goals in all competitions for the side from the Welsh capital.
Very Championship team like Scotland, really, when you look at some of the players and what clubs they come from.
Yeah, only 7 Premier League players in the Scottish squad, and of those, 5 just came up with promoted teams, like Burnley. An encouraging run here. And Kenny Miller, who hasn't really got involved yet. Another one of the Burnley contingent, Graham Alexander, losing out. Now Carew having something to chew on here, and he can't quite beat Caldwell to the punch.
It's interesting to see because, of course, Norway very, very good on counter-attack. That's the way they prefer to play. And even though they are at home, they're conceding that space, inviting Scotland into their half, and they're very, very quick to counter, as we saw it. That's why that depth in the back is so important. You don't want to have those one-against-one isolations very often. Somebody's got to be there to cover just in case.
So a test here, perhaps, for David Marshall. Some heavy traffic in front of him, as promised by Risa's throw. In the end, nothing to worry about. Routine header away for Stephen Caldwell. And now Scotland look to thrive with a counter-offensive. But Miller is guided into a harmless area by Hogley. Ball along the ground, Miller returns sharply in the penalty area. This is Scott Brown, and he's won a corner. Breda Hangeland, who continues to be the subject of some admiring glances from Arsene Wenger and Arsenal.
Absolutely. With Arsenal losing Toure, that's always been a soft spot anyway for them, even when Toure was there. Would be a good choice.
And Hangeland, the decisive header away, but the danger is not removed here. And Callum Davidson increasing the danger. Well, it was a desperate clearance just when it looked like the goal was there for the taking. For Kenny Miller, somehow I think it was Weiler, perhaps Janusz, who denied him while he was on the ground.
It was Weiler. He didn't think that Kenny Miller was going to follow up. All the credit to him for trying to pick that corner and finish up the play, but what an opportunity right there. Perhaps he already saw that ball in the back of the net, lost his concentration a little bit, did not think that Miller was going to come back on this one.
A floated delivery this time from Commons. Much more comfortable for Knudsen, so Norway surviving a real moment of alarm. Now trying to set the bells ringing at the other end. Is that handball? Carew thought so. Not, according to Alan Hammer. Just past the quarter of an hour mark in this pivotal Group 9 encounter at the Ullevål in Oslo. So glad you could join us on ESPN. Janusz Mihalik alongside me, Adrian Healy.
Well, here's that opportunity as the ball comes across from the left-hand side. And this has got to be put away, although didn't have much space, really needed to lift that ball perhaps, as you see it here. Good recovery here. Maybe a little bit more cheekiness needed from Kenny Miller on this one.
Yeah, it was Weiler who was able to recover, wasn't he? Atone for his error. Well, David Marshall kept that in play with his hands. There was some thought that it could have been called a pass back to the goalkeeper. What do you reckon, Janusz?
Well, let's see as that happens. Yeah, that could have been. But I think in the end, the right decision by the referee. A bit clumsy, to be honest.
Again, nothing particularly fancy about the Norwegian approach. A very dictionary definition of direct, aren't they, under Egil Olsen, who has a philosophy that passes should always be forward. That's a forward pass trying to release Kenny Miller, but he was offside.
That's a good thought right there. Just Kenny Miller leaving a little bit too early, already in an offside position, so I suppose there's nothing wrong with the ball. I think Kenny Miller just needs to be more disciplined. Look across. He had the ability to see all Norwegian defenders right in front of him.
Egil Olsen, the nickname of Drillo. Looking to work miracles again with Norway, as he did for much of the 1990s. Yeah, that was an uncompromising challenge from Magne Josef.
Yeah, that's got to be a booking. Reckless, mistimed it totally on this play. See Alan Hutton trying to get himself forward a little bit. Really gets to that ball first. Now look at this. That's a yellow card for me.
Well, he's impressed recently in the Norwegian First Division with Molde.
Yeah, Hussett didn't really have to do that. You saw Riise right behind him. I don't think Alan Hutton would have gone anywhere with that ball anyway.
Josef winning his first cap since January of 2006 tonight, recalled by Egil Olsen. Try and add some midfield steel. And now this for Chris Commons. He hasn't quite got the equation right so far. Those deliveries from the right. Clean by Knudsen, who made his debut in that 0-0 encounter between these two nations, Hampden Park, back in October. And that was a game famous for a miss, Janusz, perhaps the miss of the season by Chris Iwulelumo. And that was the goal that could have given Scotland a vital 3 points, but Norway felt they could have got 3 points out of that game.
Yeah,
as well.
John Carew was tough, especially on David Weir in that game, but you're absolutely right. Iwulelumo, I still remember that, and I think those are some of the misses that you always remember. That happens to players, however. It wasn't done on purpose, there's no question about that. However, if that went in, different story right now for Scotland and different meaning to this game, perhaps.
Carew guiding him back to Knudsen, who took a heavy first touch. And the Norwegian side of the 1990s qualified for World Cup 1994 in the United States. The same again in 1998. At one point, Janusz, they were up to number 2 in the world according to the FIFA rankings under Egil Olsen. They're all the way down at number 50 right now.
I'm not sure how much worth you want to put into those standings, and even Scotland being number 2, but you know, I think at this point that's all history. George Burley will just worry about the result here.
Joseph. Nothing fancy about the challenge from Caldwell. It was Huskep who was bundled over. Eric Huskep. He's very much an informed player in Norway. 7 goals in his last 8 games.
Yeah, just tight marking. As far as Gary Caldwell is concerned, he's done a very, very good job on John Carew right now, picking up every player in his zone, and yeah, maybe just got there a little bit too early. I don't think this should be a problem from this distance.
Well, they know all about John Arnorisa, don't they? His danger from set pieces. It's a long way out, mind you. But it's Pedersen who takes it instead. Juggled by David Marshall, but comfortably gathered in the end.
Oh, I don't know about comfortably. A little bit of a bubble right there, as you see it here. In the end, no harm done. But that's important for a goalkeeper to get his hands on the first one like this. Even maybe not the best. But as you mentioned, as far as goalkeepers are concerned, there's been all kinds of problems for Scotland. And perhaps he'll look at this as his first touch on the ball, and that will give him confidence for the rest of the match.
And George Burley going with David Marshall over Neil Alexander. 2 of them vying for the spot. In terms of the available substitutes, Stefan Iversen, perhaps the biggest name on the Norwegian bench, still going strong, still scoring goals in Norway for Rosenborg. Midway point of the first half. And James McFadden is perhaps the biggest gamble of George Burley's selection, left on the bench. Hartley, Fletcher and Maloney also there, so plenty of firepower. Scotland need anything later on, Janusz.
Oh, absolutely. I was just going to say that certainly a lot to go to if needed, and you'd have to think that James McFadden and of course Sean Maloney would be the first off the bench.
Now Carew looking for an angle. Well, an orthodox clearance, trying to get around the ball. Only succeeded in playing it behind.
At this level, you have got to do much, much better than this. Especially, you don't want to concede set pieces for a team like Norway right there. Doesn't seem to be under a lot of pressure. And of all the places,
some worried looks on the faces of the Tartan Army as they face another test from a set piece. Risa to swing this in. Oh, it's off the line. It may not have been creeping in at the far post, but well stationed was Chris Commons at that far post to deal with it.
That's why you have him on the far post, and you see the goalkeeper, David Marshall, misjudging double for sure. Not sure if that was going in, but still, you always like to have a player there just in case.
And a long throw. And in fact, Carew got on the end of it. A looping header onto the roof of the net from the Villa man.
That was a big task right there. Just gets it up, trying to put in the general area of the goal, but really could never guide that ball down.
David Marshall, who was blooded in the Celtic first team by Martin O'Neill. He was with Norwich City last season, who went down from the English Championship, thus the move to Cardiff City. Kenny Miller. That one half chance so far. And there's the man who denied him that chance, Weiler. And Callum Davidson. And a touchback from Brown, and the decent effort all along the ground. It came from Ross McCormack.
A good dig there, I suppose, right on goal, but if you're Scotland, I'm worried a little bit that they're starting to play a bit like Norway right now, and I think We've talked about possession in the center of the midfield. We haven't seen much of Darren Fletcher. He's fully capable of running that midfield and passing the ball around a little bit. And I would like to see Darren Fletcher and Scott Brown and perhaps even Graham Alexander get involved a little bit more rather than Scotland looking to go over the top.
Alexander doing just that, but the long ball eluding Commons.
There's just very little chance for a ball like this. Even if it, if it gets to Kenny Miller, there's not a lot of support right there. Even if that ball went to his feet, it's still a lot to do.
Now it breaks here for Carew. He's brought down. Well, he isn't. As the referee had a good look at it, Alan Hammer, and decides that it's nothing more than a goal kick, despite the protests of Pedersen.
Close. My gut feeling tells me that this could have been a penalty right there. Caldwell perhaps a little bit late, and does he catch him here? Who gets to the ball first? I tell you, I don't think he gets the ball. He certainly gets John Carew, so I think Scotland gets away with one. That for me, not for a penalty. It really is. Nowhere near the ball. He gets a touch on it. I think John Carew knew exactly what he needed to do. He perhaps embellished it just a bit. As you see, I think Scotland gets away with one here.
Well, we've certainly seen them given, haven't we? He looked sometimes for a lot less than that.
Tell you what, Caldwell looked a bit slow in reaction right there. Just not sure that you even need to commit yourself in a tackle like this, because really that ball was going wide. John Carew with back to the goal, still a lot to do. Even if he got to that ball, maybe just contain the player. That would have been a better option for them. Don't give the referee any chances. I'll tell you, they got away with this one. The next one, I think the referee will point to the spot, so they're going to have to be careful from now on.
Graham Alexander finding Scott Brown. Scotland look to construct something meaningful with Hutton. Alexander can't get the delivery right, looking back down at the turf. I think it's fair to say there's been an escape at either end thus far. The clearance for Whaler, matched by the non-awarding of the penalty kick, perhaps. Hutton has done well here. He's gone down, trying to elude the slide from Risa.
Yeah, probably another booking. Once again, overcommitting himself. Risa had no reason to do that. Hutton cutting that ball back right there. Again, just stand the player up. You can see it coming. That's just really naive from Risa. That has to be a yellow card.
Jonana Risa, 7 years with Liverpool. Start of his second season now with Roma.
I think it is, and I think he gets the benefit of the doubt from the referee.
Scotland with 5 in the penalty area awaiting this delivery. It's again not dealt with convincingly by the Norwegian defence. McCormack trying to pick up the pieces. Well, he has them snatched away. Now on the counter-attack, Husklepp is the conduit. Needs an outlet, and he's found one! Oh, and Risa, with the goal at his mercy, blazes it over the bar.
I'll tell you, that's great vision, and you have to ask for more from Risa on this play. Absolutely free on the far post. Scottish defenders ball watching on this one. As you see, Alan Hutton gets pulled inside on this one. I'm not sure why he has to go. Husklepp, as you see it here. Look at that little look. Good vision right here. Inside foot from Risa. You got to guide that down. And it would have been 1-0 Norway, and perhaps it should have been. You see the manager knows exactly what that chance meant.
Well, it is just what has been bedeviling Norway throughout this World Cup qualifying campaign. They simply cannot score goals. Scored 2 in their first game against Iceland, haven't scored since.
Imagine both teams had a good look now. Kenny Miller, that was a pretty good chance for Scotland. Now, of course, Risa. I'm not sure if I want to call it a sitter, but in many, many ways was very close to it.
I saw Risa score a couple of big goals last season in the Italian Serie A, both of them at the San Siro against the 2 Milan clubs playing for Roma. And he's back in his normal position, shielding the ball out of play.
Well, on that last play, Scotland defense was drawn to the ball, really. And, you know, talking about ball watching, you know that Risa will always make that run. One of those fullbacks that goes up and down the entire match. 2 sets along for me. So you saw on Hutton being pinched in a little bit too much, in my opinion, between the two Coldwells. They have to figure it out.
Half an hour gone, and Risa is walking a fine line at the moment, surely with Alan Hammer. And I think his patience has finally been snapped.
Well, you saw the 2 fingers going out from the referee. He let the first one go, the one on Hutton, just a minute ago. And again, overcommitting, trying to win that tackle. Again, containing might have been a better situation in that part of the pitch, really. And I don't think there'll be any complaints for me. He should have been booked on the first one anyway.
There's been a succession of free kicks for Scotland on their right-hand side. They really haven't been able to produce too much from them yet. This one worked short by Caldwell. And across to Callum Davidson. And no turn available from McCormack. And a steamroller challenge in the centre circle. And the yellow cards are flying thick and fast at the moment. Gary Caldwell, the latest recipient.
Hard to complain. I think he's had a couple of iffy tackles already right there, being pulled out of his spot. Look how far he is. Both hands, scissor type. I don't think you can complain about that. And it's been a stop-start game, really. If there's a notion that Scotland is a passing team, well, it hasn't materialized just yet. I think both teams at the moment bypassing the center of the midfield. Not a lot of play, long balls going forward, a lot of set pieces, as I mentioned. If there's a goal in this match, it may come from that, a corner or a free kick.
Risa. Carew losing out in the midfield melee. Graham Alexander trying to lead Scotland forward, overdid it. Now Grindheim for Norway. Josef is first to show, immediately looking for the long ball. And a shirt grab this time. Carew was victimised. It was Gary Caldwell, who's just been booked, remember. Oh, what's Alan Hammer going to do? He sent him off. Oh, it's an absolute disaster for Scotland, and Gary Caldwell can scarcely believe it.
I'll tell you, on surface, to me, it looks harsh. I'd like to have a second look if he did hold him there. The referee's close enough. If he impeded him that way, I suppose the referee has no choice, but I'll tell you, that changes the game, doesn't it? Both teams needing all 3 points, really. When you look at it, a draw would not be a disaster, but really, that's not what they want. And I think Gary Caldwell has had a good game up until now. No complaints about the first yellow card. This one looks harsh for me unless he grabs him. Let's see it here. Here's, you know, you look at the referee right behind it. First the arm, now the jersey. And here's the advantage I think that John Carew had. I think a little bit of a late reaction from Caldwell. So perhaps with the referee being this close, Gary Caldwell gave him no choice. We'll see what the reaction will be from Scotland. See how they rearrange now, because they're going to have to.
Gary Caldwell shown 2 yellow cards within the space of 60 seconds, and now George Burley has to reorganise. Scotland facing the prospects of 55 minutes plus. They're just 10 men, and their immediate priority is to get the defence watertight. There's John Arne Riise. He now is licking his lips here. Pedersen took the last free kick for Norway. Janis, can you imagine? Maybe Riise's turn this time.
Yeah, this is a bit closer, a lot more dangerous. I think by the looks of it, it's going to be John Arne Riise on this one.
Well, the other Riise, Bjorn Helge Riise, is also standing over it, but it's John Arne Riise who delivers the bullet, and it's a dagger into the heart of the Scots. They are seeing red in Scotland. The red card for Caldwell. And now the men in red are in front.
Well, they really are paying the ultimate price, aren't they? Having a player sent off right off the set piece, as we mentioned. That's where the goals are going to come. As you look at it, here's a deflection. Oof, I thought there was something into it. You see it here. David Marshall, absolutely no chance whatsoever on this play. Scott Brown getting in the way of this one. The sheer power of that shot, I'm not sure how much Brown could have done about that, but certainly no fault of the goalkeeper on this one. And we've seen Risa with that sort of power from that distance punishes Scotland.
John Arne Riise's 10th international goal for Norway has Scotland in deep trouble here. And they need to regroup, reorganise, and find a way of stemming the tide. And to that effect, they're going to sacrifice Ross McCormack here. They had to get another defender on, and it's Christophe Berra who's going to be the man. Of Tartan tension has got a whole lot more unbearable in the space of the last few minutes.
Well, the way it stands, though, even though you have 10 players, you're going to continue. You have to continue go forward, and in many ways. I mean, the shape changes, but if you really look at it on surface, you can still play, you know, the 4-4-1 formation. Kenny Miller's been all alone, and I suppose if they can get hold of the ball and keep possession a little bit, Scotland, and they're going to have to do it now, and still be careful in the back, because as I mentioned, there was that isolation between Gary Caldwell and John Carew. There was no cover whatsoever in case you get beaten, and Gary Caldwell felt like he had to hold on to it and paid the price himself, and of course consequently Scotland paid the price in conceding a goal as well.
And Berra's first act is to concede a corner under duress from Husaklep. Christophe Berra plays his club football with Wolverhampton Wanderers, now of the English Premier League. Corner delivered into an inviting spot, but Grindheins attempts to get on the end of it, judged to be illegal. Christian Grindheim, who plays in Holland with Heerenveen. Well, nothing David Marshall could do about it. That being the free kick from John Arne Riise. So is it now about damage limitation for Scotland getting in at the break? Just the goal behind Janusz.
Yeah, psychologically, I think, you know, 38 minutes in, I suppose they have to reorganize, just recognize the fact what has happened. They're behind, they're playing with 10 players, and I think George Burley at halftime is going to have to come up with a plan, not just to defend, obviously, to find a way to go forward and get an equalizer and perhaps even a winner. And, you know, this has to be your mentality in a game like this. They need the 3 points. I don't think they can dwell on the fact that they're playing men down. You can still continue in playing, but playing is an important word here, because they haven't done that, and that's something that I at least expected from Scotland.
Now here's Hogley joining the build-up very quickly. Has his feet removed from beneath it by Scott Brown. Scott Brown, whose deflection the ball past the unfortunate Marshall. And now there's more to worry about with Riise teeing this up. Looking for a teasing sort of delivery, perhaps. David Marshall has 5 Norwegian players to worry about in the penalty area. A couple lurking just outside it. Riise. Oh, he connected with the man making the run of the near post. It was Pedersen.
Yeah, he was looking to their near post. Good defending by Callum Davidson there.
5 minutes remaining in this first half. This is the goal that separates the sides.
Oh, it doesn't take much. You see that deflection with this sort of power. Just really downright the middle. There's no way you can get out of the way of a strike like this, even if you tried.
Oslo is a place where Scotland actually have a very decent record in competitive games. In fact, they've never lost here in any sort of qualifier. 3 wins and a draw in their previous visits to the far north of Europe.
This was a place where Darren Fletcher got his first cap at the age of 19 against Norway in the friendly. Speaking of Darren Fletcher, really non-existent.
We haven't seen too much of Fletcher or Miller for that matter, have we? Commons has huffed and puffed up and down the left-hand side. McCormack likewise on the right, but McCormack sacrificed to bring Christoph Berra into play.
I'll tell you, quite frankly, you know, I'm not sure if there's a place for Graham Alexander right now. That holding midfield place, the way Norway are playing, I'm not sure if you really need it. And maybe there's got to be a look with James McFadden, maybe playing just behind Kenny Miller for support a little bit. You can still have Scott Brown and Darren Fletcher holding, you know, two central midfielders right there. But I just don't know. I think holding midfielders, if you're sending a number of players forward, obviously he's trying to combine and possess the ball. I can see why you would need Graham Alexander or anybody in that position for that matter. But I think if I'm George Burley, I seriously would think about James McFadden maybe withdrawing Alexander.
Alexander playing a little
or Scott Brown for that matter, really. I mean, one of those central midfielders got to come off for me.
Alexander playing a little bit out of position as well. For Burnley, more often a right back. Well, plenty to ponder for that man, George Burley. Many considered his team selection certainly departure from the norm, if not an out-and-out gamble. At the moment it's backfiring. But Pedersen was offside. So no further damage done for now.
Well, you have the 4 midfielders right now, and I would just play rather than side by side. Just put McFadden as an attacking midfielder, if you will. The question would be who comes off in that situation. Would it be Alexander or Scott Brown, really?
Last couple of minutes of the first half. Risa winning the challenge fairly easily, and a lovely dummy had Carew seemingly on his way. Was there another shirt grab there by Stephen Caldwell? There was. And it's a further yellow card.
And what a great understanding and a dummy run by Huseklepp on this one as he lets that one go. And once again, here's that isolation. Very much like his brother, having all kinds of problems staying with John Carew.
Stephen Caldwell, his first appearance for Scotland for more than 3 years. And booking for the Burnley man. And now Risa setting out his stall once more. There's towering targets to aim for, and he's overdone it.
Well, I suppose it's a good thing that it's almost halftime for Scotland. Clearly shaken up here, really without an idea of how to possess the ball and where to go next right now. Momentum going Norway's way. That's to be expected, I suppose, but in a game like this, sometimes the leadership's got to come out. You've got to hold on to the ball. Just got to make sure that you stick with your plan, even though it has changed a little bit.
Yeah, first half that started brightly enough for George Burley's men. It's gone off the rails.
And the problem for me is that you know, these things happen and you have to be able to sort them out on the pitch. You know, you can't just wait for halftime for the manager or for the players to talk about it. You sometimes have to solve these problems on the pitch, and I just don't think that's happening right now.
Perhaps The half-time whistle won't arrive soon enough. There may be another Norwegian attack to deal with, though. In the meantime, an opening for a shot and a left-footed finish has Scotland in deep, deep trouble. And it's Pedersen who's put them there.
Oh, we talked about not conceding. A dagger in the heart, really. It was a beautiful, beautiful build-up, starting with that change of the point, if you will. That long ball right there, Ugly coming up, and look at this. Look how easy and how spread out the Scottish defense is right now. And this is just quality. Good finish, good recognition, good vision from all players involved on this one. This cutback is superb, and look at the finish to the far post.
Morten Gamst Pedersen with his 11th international goal, and just what Scotland wanted to avoid, conceding a second just before the break. They weren't saved by the whistle.
No, they were not. That's interesting. That's why I was hinting that they have to sort these problems. They needed, timing of the goal, obviously never perfect. Just before halftime, right after halftime, all managers always talk about this, keeping concentration, cutting your losses. This man, in my mind, has just put this game away.
Where do Scotland go from here? John Arne Riise's opener was bad enough, coming in the aftermath of the sending off of Gary Caldwell. But then their problems compounded by Morten Gamst Pedersen's second, just seconds before the break. An uphill battle, to say the least, for the Tartan Army facing them now. Against Cyprus, the next game's in the European portion of World Cup qualifying coming up September 6th and 9th, and we'll have full coverage, of course, right here on ESPN. So glad you could join us tonight. Adrian Healy and Janusz Michalek with you, seeing if Scotland can produce a miracle. We talked about Egil Olsson and his miracle workings for Norway before kick-off, and now really the boot is on the other foot. It's Scotland who need a miracle here.
Well, it'd be easy to say that the red card has changed the game, but it really hasn't. It was a set piece, and that could have happened with all 11 players on the pitch anyway. A bit of a misfortune on that one for Scott Brown, but anything that happened after that, it was a Scottish team that just couldn't recover from conceding that first goal. You could clearly see it, that there was in 6s and 7s, and the way they got carved out for that second ball, really, when you have a look on that right-hand side, how easily Norwegian players got open and how much time they had on the ball to put that one away. Of course, just before halftime, it didn't make it any easier. So we'll see what the reaction will be from Scotland.
The reaction from Norway is to start on the front foot immediately, with Morten Gamst Pedersen running into a brick wall in the form of Stephen Caldwell.
Between Gary Caldwell and Stephen, I think they've conceded probably 6 or 7 fouls by now, if not more.
The first time the two brothers had started together for over 5 years for Scotland, and it didn't last long. 36 minutes. Now, Magne Hoseth standing over this for Norway. John Arne Riise, and it falls for John Carew. Oh, he could have finished it. And some heroics from David Marshall, keeping tenuous Scottish hopes alive.
Yeah, loose ball. Once again, that probably should have been put away by this man. No stranger to scoring goals, that's for sure. Marshall comes up huge on this one.
Another huge hill from John Arne Riise. Hutton was there to meet it. Scotland able to smother the danger.
Let's see what happens here in the back four, pushing up, perhaps hoping for an offside here, and I tell you, that's just got to be done much better. Graham Alexander once again guilty of not clearing this properly. You just see it here, good touch right there. Marshall coming out, cutting the angle, forcing Carew to get rid of that ball very quickly. In the end, very good save by the goalkeeper.
Well, George Burley isn't waiting long, is he? James McFadden is replacing Stephen Caldwell. That's interesting, he took off an attacker for a central defender, and it was only 1-0, but of course a quick change in the course of action required, chasing a 2-goal deficit, so it's all or nothing really. What is there left to lose?
It almost seems they're going to 3 in the back right now. Davidson Berra and Alan Hatton, I suppose. And maybe an admission from George Burley that the experiment did not work. Maybe those who will be still talking about David Weir and perhaps his experience being important in a match like this.
So James McFadden, scorer of that goal in Paris nearly 2 years ago now. A goal that beat France. He actually scored 2 goals for Scotland since, and had a suffocating year in the English Championship last year with Birmingham City.
Looks like Graham Alexander maybe on that right side of defense, helping out a little bit.
This is Bjorn Helge, brother of John Arne. It was he who set up Pedersen for that second goal just before the break. Yeah, you're right, Graham Alexander, the Iron Man who played 66 games last year in all competitions for Burnley and Scotland. Didn't miss a minute.
Yeah, Alan Hatton's pushed in. Central defense.
And it's broken here for McFadden. It was certainly a heavy challenge on the edge of the area, but deemed a fair one, and a numerical advantage here for Norway, but they weren't able to exploit it. The wayward pass gave Husklepp no chance.
And Graham Alexander a little bit late in coming back, desperately hoping that that delivery wasn't good. And, his prayers have been answered on that one.
There's a lot written about before the game, Janish, and that Norway perhaps had the psychological advantage. This game falling in the middle of their domestic season, which runs March through to November. Scotland, of course, about to start next weekend.
Yeah, I suppose that is a little bit of an advantage. The calendar is changing constantly with the Champions League qualifiers right now. Certain countries do have the advantage. Of course, Celtic almost found that out with against the Russian team, Dynamo Moscow. Fortunately, great result away from home, 2-0.
And Celtic's first away win in Europe for 6 years. Now the prize is a game against Arsenal for them.
Doesn't get easy, does it?
And by the same token, there were embarrassing exits from Europe for Falkirk, for Motherwell, and for Aberdeen last week. And those in the Europa League qualifying rounds. And the national team not faring much better tonight.
Yeah, the landscape's changing. The Scottish teams are finding it's harder and harder to compete right now. Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised with the results of the national team. This is not the same team that we've seen in years past. You've mentioned the glory days, I suppose.
But McFadden has done well here to release his man Commons. Well, the shot was from a tight angle in the end, and Knudsen was able to block it in a fairly routine fashion, but it's at least better from George Burley's men. But there's something to worry about at the other end for them now. And it was Hoseth who stormed forward. He has to settle for the corner. And Chris Commons had his chance here.
Good build-up, although I'll tell you, Commons here beats the offside trap, no question about that. Just wanted to get rid of it. I think he was looking across to see if he can square that ball. Didn't look all that comfortable. The angle wasn't the best, I suppose. The only chance he would have had if he went to the far post, but that's not easy with a left foot from that angle.
Here's the Norwegian corner. Metz, a little touch by Pedersen. Couldn't steer it where he wanted to. Just one goal last year for Blackburn Rovers. Into his 6th year in the English Northwest.
And speaking of angles, that was always going to be difficult. Look how far past the post he is. Just trying to redirect it, but sea of legs right there. You see the goalkeepers in the near post doing his job. That's a big ask.
Yeah, the impressive Husklepp. The young partner of John Carew, Eric Husklepp, 24. And he's been on fire in the Norwegian Premier League. There he is. He scored 9 goals this season, second top scorer in the Norwegian top flight. He's with Brann. Callum Davidson. Scott Brown's pass was engineered for Alexander, but fell short of the mark. Now Scotland could be stretched again defensively. It was a slide rule pass, which Carew was just fractionally late reacting to.
I think he took it for granted. He probably thought that Berra was going to get to that ball. Once he missed it, a moment of hesitation, lets it go. You see it here. Look at that outstretched leg. Right there, you can see it from the reaction from John Carew that he never thought that ball was going to get through. But at the moment, Norway is having acres of space all over the pitch.
Aaron Fletcher. Will he be able to increase his influence on proceedings? He was strangely absent from much of the first half. Janish, the Scottish captain. Good footwork here from McFadden. And again, an easy passage through midfield for Norway. And the outlet is Husklepp. And the ball just behind him. Allowed Hutton to intervene.
Graham Alexander was looking at that run and still allowed the ball to go through right there. It's not looking very good for me on that right-hand side. Obviously, Scotland will have to take some chances. They will have to send fullbacks forward, but you still have to defend. It's a tall task at 2-0, at 3-0. It's absolutely over.
Well, he's stringing some passes together now in the early stages of the second half, the Scots, but that move breaks down. Yeah, it did seem a little far-fetched that perhaps before kickoff that Norway was still talking about going in with a shout of finishing second and getting a playoff spot, but a victory here tonight will certainly reignite those slim chances. It would put them a point behind Scotland. Still with 2 games to play for both nations.
It just makes you wonder if there will be a team coming out of this group in the second spot.
Yeah, remember, 1 of the second place finishers will miss out of the playoffs. 8 of the 9 will get there. The nation with the worst record won't. Oh, over the head it comes from Josef. Well, the crowd liked it.
And Scotland had the best opportunity if they were to get the 3 points here, even 1. They're sitting on 7, so 8. You know, with 1, of course, hoping to beat Macedonia at home. That's additional 3, and Holland, of course, won't be all that interested. But losing here is just going to make it difficult. Even if Norway runs the table here, I'm still not sure if they're going to come out of this group.
There's a touch of irony that this ground has been a graveyard for English hopes on more than one occasion in the past. Famous defeats here in 1980 and again in 1993. Really dented hopes of qualification for major tournaments for England.
Well, they'll look good. And no chance of making it to the back of the net.
Norway 2, Scotland 0. Goals from Riise and Pedersen doing the damage in the tail end of the first half. Neat and tidy from Kenny Miller. Lack of concentration there. The ball got away from Scott Brown, and now Carew galloping forward. He's got round his man as well. Carew with a delicate touch. Well, it's the sort of ball he would have wanted to be on the end of. And Finally, the danger removed, and more than that, promising for Scotland. Kenny Miller on his own with 2 defenders to contend with. And he can't find a way around Weiler. Has been his nemesis tonight.
Yeah, and he was on his own once again. We haven't seen him get too many touches on this one. You could see it that as he was making that run, he was looking left and right and hoping that somebody's going to be running there in support. They're getting half looks here and there, Scotland, but I just suspect that if anything, it's going to be Norway scoring a third or perhaps even fourth before Scotland gets one.
Graham Alexander. Darren Fletcher, who played in the Community Shield for Manchester United against Chelsea this past weekend. George Burley actually successfully lobbied for the delaying in the start of the SPL season by a week. Endemic of what has gone wrong tonight for Scotland. A routine pass from Scott Brown going astray. Now Josef. Grindheim. Angled pass inside the full-back, but Hutton was there to deal with it. Two days until World Cup South Africa gets underway. Peru. Oh, it's off both posts, but the rebound is tucked home. And that surely is the final nail in the coffin for Scotland. And it's Eric Hooscliffe with a well-deserved strike.
Absolutely. How impressive has John Carew been with that to goal right there? Mountain of a man, that's for sure. Good target player, the way he gets away. How many white jerseys do you see right there? Look at that touch, not the best. Still brings it down. 1, 2, 3 players. You see it here. Showing strength, hits the both posts by Hooscliffe. Give him credit, I'll tell you what. He didn't take it for granted. He followed up on the play. And sometimes when you do that, you do get rewarded. It seems to me that it should have been John Carew. He's done enough to get rewarded on this one. Look at Hooscliffe right there, as I mentioned. There's more to come probably right now. 6s and 7s. That's being kind as far as Scotland's concerned. I don't think they believe anymore. I don't think they have it in them to come back in this game, or they didn't have it before this last goal.
On the hour, Eric Hooscliffe collecting his first national team goal. It was his 5th appearance for Norway. Talked about him being on fire in Norwegian domestic football. He's on the move again here, Hooscliffe. Well, eventually Marshall was there. Well, it's a tale of woe for the Tartan Army thus far. Kenny Miller, a man who's crossed the Old Firm divide twice in his career. And back with Rangers. He came here with such optimism, as did most associated with Scotland, a real genuine belief that they could get a result here in Oslo. It's proved to be ill-founded.
And he knew he had to gamble a little bit. And both Caldwell's unimpressive in the center of the pitch. I will have to tell you that Christophe Berra has not fared much better. It's very, very slow and cumbersome to me ever since he came on the pitch.
Crossfield, ball hitting Hope. And Chris Commons. The reality is, they said they needed 2 wins in the last 3. Give themselves a fighting chance of finishing second with a good enough record to get one of those playoff spots. And they still have a chance to win 2 out of 3, but they're going to have to get the job done at home at Hampden Park.
Is that going to be enough? That's the bigger question.
Well, the most Scotland could now end up with would be 13 points.
This idea for Scotland, George Burley, to play the attacking football in this match. If you look at George Burley and Walter Smith, there's certainly differences. Walter Smith much more defensive minded. I think we would have seen a different team, different formation. And just in Scotland sitting tight and compact right there, inviting Norway and trying to play on the counter-attack, I suppose. And I think maybe the idea for George Burley was correct. But we didn't see too much attacking. Kenny Miller has always been isolated for me. We haven't seen anything out of Darren Fletcher, I'm sorry.
Well, this is Miller now. Chance for Alexander to deliver the cross, but it spoons up into the air and harmlessly away. And look at that from Josef. Plenty of energy and bite and hunger to the Norwegian approach. Risa's shot is charged down, and on the follow-up it was his brother Bjorn Helge Risa who was denied at the last moment.
Just desperate defending, isn't it? If you look at here, Norway having fun at the moment. Everything falls their way. Any deflection, you see players all over. You hear once again Barrow with the first one, Davidson with the second one.
It's the fifth corner of the night for the Norwegians. Risa. Not the first time we've seen that. David Marshall facing a whipped-in delivery.
And we saw that in the first half and the second half once again. Player on the far post, always bending in, but Marshall not getting anywhere near that ball.
Sensed it was a decision that he spent a long time over leading up to this game, George Burley, just how to approach it. Called it the most difficult decision of his 18 months in charge. Pedersen underneath it. Grindheim swinging it across for Risa. Norway still have the appetite to come forward, don't they? And perhaps recognising that goal difference could yet play a part in.
Yeah, but most importantly, they know the pressure's off. At 3-0 right now, they can afford to send a player forward. Obviously, they have an extra player right now. You see the fullbacks getting involved a lot more in the second half. Of course, Risa has always been going up and down. But you're absolutely right. The goal difference may make a difference. And why not taking advantage of a team that right now is just hoping that this game is over, really.
And some twisting and turning from Commons. Looking for the angle of the shot. He had all the sting taken out of it. Kenny Miller couldn't feast upon the scraps. And the chance drifts away. The ball, though, quickly dispatched to the other end. Some fancy footwork with Pedersen involved. And the finish, well, did it go in? Carew thought so. John Carew looking for a flag, which wouldn't come.
Well, he's hit both posts and the crossbar now. My initial thought was that was in.
And Commons at the other end. Well, did well to force some action there from John Knudsen, but...
Are we going to be talking about goal line technology once again? Perhaps not. This is not going to decide it, but let's see. It hits it here. Yep, that's in. That's clearly in.
Well, sometimes you have to feel for the assistants, don't you? Because they don't always have a clear look at the goal line.
Would have been a bigger controversy if this is 0-0 and that decision's being made. at 3-0, I suppose you can forget about that, because you have to imagine, as you see it here, that Norway is going to have more chances.
Well, they're having a field day here on the counter-attack. Scottish defensive resources stretched mighty thin as Risa sends in a bullet. Well, it's almost shooting practice now on the training ground for Norway.
It really is, and for me, Scotland's got to make it more respectable at the moment. As you see it here, Marshall doing a good job just to parry this. Wide enough, there's that plenty of power that you see from Risa. But at this stage, I think the notion's got to be that you got to finish this game respectfully, and you have to be disciplined. You have to send players forward, I suppose, and take some risks, and maybe to get something out of this game. But it's reckless, really, from Scotland right now. Every counter is, 4 or 5 red jerseys against 1 or 2.
Relatively young Scottish squad, 10 out of the 23 players aged 24 or younger. And you've already noted, Janis, that George Burley has the SPL, obviously, but the English Championship rather than the Premiership is more the norm now to draw upon for his players. Once was a time when Liverpool and Manchester United provided the bulk of the Scottish squad. No trouble here. Berra's header only half away. It falls for Hogley.
Well, to be fair to...
Josef has done well. Now will Crew get his goal? Well, he won't, because his control let him down at the vital point. They're almost toying with the Scottish defenders at the moment.
They really are. I do believe it was Berra once again. That ball got played behind. I don't think he was aware that there was a Norwegian player. Look at this right here. Oh, it was James McFadden, actually, and he's limping a bit. Good recovery in the end. There's that collision with Carew. But to be fair to George Burley, I think, the reason he has these sort of players is, the sort of players that he's missing, like Manasur, like Naismith, Broadfoot, James Morrison, Iwalumo. So that's significant. So we have to acknowledge that fact that he would have liked to have some of these players.
Marshall thought about coming for the deep free kick. And it was Weiler who got on the end of it.
Not to mention the controversy with Barry Ferguson.
Yep.
And now McGregor, of course. So, the whole ball go over it. Oof. Yeah, I mean, that's in. I think it hits the line initially, but it goes over.
It's amazing how many examples of those we seem to have seen in the last 12 months or so.
Adrian, I'm a purist, but I think this is one area where I would concede for goal line technology. Everything else, I'm not big. The offsides and stopping the game in the middle to make decisions, I don't think there's a place for that in football. No. Football has survived for so many years without it. It's still a beautiful game, but I think this is one where I wouldn't mind if the referees got a little bit of help.
Why not utilize the technology that tennis employs? Of technology could save Scotland from their current predicament. Down by 3-0. Down a man, as they have been since the 36th minute. And now just a question, it seems, is whether Norway will add further pain. And they certainly still look in the mood. They haven't enjoyed a competitive night like this for some time, the Norwegians. Had an excellent result earlier this year in a friendly against Germany. That was Egil Olsen's first game back in charge, Janis. I know you saw that game. They beat Germany 1-0 in Dusseldorf. First time they've beaten Germany since 1936.
That was enough to tell me how good this Norwegian team is. And of course, play much better away from home because they're allowed to sit back and counter, and that's what they're good at. See Kenny Miller with a bit of a clip there.
Risa still bombing forward on the left. The young striker, Husklepp, wanted it. And got it fed to him in the right sort of area. Now, in fact, Risa may be stranded forward if James McFadden can take advantage very quickly, though. He's swarmed upon.
Yeah, Kenny Miller made a good diagonal run, hoping for that ball to be played through.
Darren Fletcher to recover the lost cause. Huge disappointment for him at the end of last season, of course, missing out in the Champions League final. The Scottish captain at the age of 25. George Burley trying to keep his troops on an up-tempo. They finished the game in the right manner.
Yeah, I think he was telling, especially the midfielders, to stay compact. Or at least all formations should be. They have been stretched.
Away by Callum Davidson. It's straight into touch. Joseph. And this looks as though it's going to be. It's Norway's second competitive victory against Scotland in 9 tries. And their first ever at home. Scott Brown. Scotland come forward in search of what will probably no more than consolation at this stage. Chris Commons. Commons again, let it go to McFadden. Change of pace and direction from the Birmingham City man. Scott Brown fending off Grindheim to keep the attack alive.
Oh, this is a little bit better from Scotland. Good movement with and without the ball.
Just giving Darren Fletcher a little bit too much to do. Eric Husklepp getting a lot of the attention. Still no changes by Egil Olsen. And finally, with 15 minutes to go, the first. What a night for 24-year-old Eric Husklepp. One he'll always remember. His first international goal arriving. What a poacher's goal it was.
Yeah, we didn't see much of him in the first half. Certainly in the second half, he formed a better partnership with John Carew. You saw there, got rewarded for following up on the play.
So the youngster making way for the veteran, Stefan Iversen. Still going strong in Norwegian football with Rosenborg. And remembered fondly his time in North London. 7 years he spent with Spurs on the turn of the decade. Stefan Iversen making his debut for Norway just after their last appearance at the World Cup finals. He first represented his country in October of 1998.
Fletcher here trying to anticipate. He read that play, just got there a little bit late. Good move by Hoseth right there. I think he sensed the fact that Fletcher was coming, just a little bit of a cutback. And once committed like that, Fletcher really couldn't stop his momentum.
Well, Christoph Berra needs some attention.
Yeah, Whitaker looks like he's going to come in.
Stephen Whitaker will win his first cap. If he does, the Rangers defender in his 3rd year. Hibernian man. Set to replace Berra, it seems.
It looks like he pulled his hamstring. It wasn't a good game for him. It has been a problem for Scotland. As I mentioned, with both Colwells and Berra didn't look very, very good. All kinds of problems, John Carew in particular.
So it'll be the fourth different centre-back employed tonight. George Burley, Stephen Whittaker for the last 12 minutes or so. Well, they won't have long to regroup and rethink, Janis. Scotland will now face be an absolutely must-win situation against Macedonia on September the 6th.
And sometimes that's exactly what a team well beaten like this needs. Come back, prove the doubters wrong, and what a better place to do than at home.
Defeat against Macedonia in Skopje, which started their campaign in such a disastrous fashion. Both of Scotland's wins thus far coming home and away against Iceland. They will have to beat Macedonia, and then they will have to beat Holland if they are to stand any chance of finishing second and well enough to claim one of those playoff places. Always different at home, of course, Janis, but at Hampden, can they do it? Can they get 6 points out of 6 against those two nations?
That's why you play the game realistically. I think they got to start looking into the World Cup qualifying campaign right now, and hate to be negative here, but I think the realities are that's going to be difficult. The notion out there is that Holland has qualified. They still have so much quality. They're probably going to have some younger players tested that will be up for it, trying to prove that they belong, and then they should be going to South Africa. And I'm not sure it's a given that just because Holland's already qualified that this is going to be an easy game, and I'm sure George Burley and Scotland realize that. And who knows, Macedonia may be a tall task as well.
Oh, they themselves are still in the hunt for that second place as well. And Norway with this victory will be right in the thick of it too. John Carew still hasn't ended that lean streak of his, 10 games without a goal for his country. He's done everything but score.
And he continues to stay central, and it's amazing to me that Scotland hasn't figured this out. Somebody's got to front the man and somebody's got to be behind, because if that splitting ball goes through, he's got enough pace to get by, of course, the Scottish defenders. He's proven that.
Has been slim pickings, to say the least, for Kenny Miller. Up front, James McFadden has certainly added a little something since his introduction, Janis, but too little too late, really.
Yeah, it comes at a time where it doesn't really matter, and once again, I think psychologically Scotland's beaten here. I think fitness-wise a little bit as well. We've talked about the difficulties of the season just beginning for a lot of these players.
And Whaler and central defensive pairing, relatively comfortable night for Norway. And the two of them there to snuff out the flames. Another Scottish attack. How will Greta Hangeland be playing his club football this season? It's a question that remains to be answered. He will kick off with Fulham this weekend. Arsenal continue to covet his signature. Sharp turn by another Fulham man, Bjorn Helge. Holgi on the move. There was enough contact to warrant a free kick. Chris Commons helping out his beleaguered defence.
Another good build-up from Norway, as you mentioned. Bjorn Helge Riise, what a good job he's done. Off balance, hit a little bit, still somehow send out ball there, and you see Cummins here. I haven't seen this man come on up and down the pitch as much as Riise on the other side, on the left-hand side. Certainly still a handful. Standing ovation here.
The Norwegian crowd rising as Riise looks to finish with a flourish.
Of course, that must have been anticipation of perhaps another goal for Norway.
Stefan Iversen unable to direct his header on target, and that will be the end of the night for John Carew. The crowd staying on their feet to applaud the Villa man. He's really had a finger in every pie tonight, so to speak.
Okay, you got to give him a lot of credit, because remember, very early on he was booked. I thought he was going to be the one that's going to get frustrated, perhaps. It turned out to be that he frustrated Gary Caldwell more than anything else, and continued to play better and better. And as we mentioned, very, very good season for Aston Villa, especially in the second half. Very influential in this game for me, by far the best player on the pitch.
And it's a double switch, because Bjorn Helge Riise is also making way for Per Skjelbred. And Riese's, or rather Carew's replacement, by the way, Thorstein Helstad, a man who had quite an impact in France last year. His first year in French football at the age of 32. He scored 10 goals for Le Mans. Thorstein Helstad was number 17. Now then, chance here, perhaps for a Scottish consolation. Kenny Miller, though, denied. It was a fairly decent half chance.
Yeah, a bit of a gift there for Kenny Miller. One that he didn't take advantage of.
James McFadden got past 2 challenges, not the third. Quickly heave forward for Helstad. Not too much on it. Final 5 minutes here at the Ullevål in Oslo. Scottish hopes of being in South Africa next summer, making a major dent here tonight. European playoffs, Janusz, the likelihood are that teams like Hungary, perhaps, or the Republic of Ireland may be potential opponents for whoever does finish second in this group.
Well, as always, there's going to be 1 or 2 significant countries that are going to miss the World Cup. It's going to make you say, why is this happening? If you consider some of the weaker teams that make it to different regions, but that's the beauty of the World Cup. And of course, Europe, so many great teams. Somebody's got to miss out.
Ukraine and Croatia seem to be battling for second spot behind England in their group. Belarus even aren't out of the running yet. So if either Norway or Scotland could finish second in this group, then yeah, a couple of interesting scenarios perhaps awaiting them. A 2-legged playoff. Josef deliver the ball over the top for Iversen, but the evergreen striker is fractionally offside. Stefan Iversen, who's level with John Carew in the Norwegian goal-scoring chance, 21. He's notched in 76 appearances.
It's always going to be difficult to break down why Scotland played the way they did, but I think even though they did not concede early on, and we talked about the importance of first 10 or 15 minutes, they got drawn into the way that Norway plays, really. We looked for possession, combination play from Scotland. They never established that possession in the midfield. Kenny Miller, for me, was always isolated. We've talked about the two wingers perhaps helping out, even talking about the 4-3-3 system with the wingers, with Cummins and McCormack on the outside. I never thought they got forward. You see here that shot from distance. Really no problem.
Yeah, it was Chris Commons.
Always rising, but really, they needed to stop Norway from constantly playing these balls over the top, from the game being stopped at all times, the set pieces we've mentioned, and of course the red card did not help.
And that's certainly a moment that Scotland will point to where it all went wrong, but concedes, as you pointed out, Janssen, to be so before that, as Talana Risa tries his luck. He opened the scoring.
We knew that Norway was going to go long in some way. That's very predictable, and you ought to be able to win the aerial battles, and I think that's not a big ask of a team like Scotland. But then once you win the ball, you ought to be able to keep it, and I don't think that ever happened.
Well, they haven't had too much to cheer about in the last few years. Norwegian football fans, they missed out in the 2006 qualifiers in a playoff with the Czech Republic. Also lost in the playoff with Spain in Euro 2004. Finished behind Turkey in the qualifiers for Euro 2008. And Egil Olsen has produced another fine result here. Actually undefeated at home under Olsen for 31 games now. Dates back to the early 1990s in his first spell in charge. This is Helstad, winding his way through a couple of challenges and then bowled over. And in stoppage time, Scotland had more to worry about. Skjeldbred it was who won the free kick, the Rosenborg man.
And I think that ball actually got away from him. That last touch maybe too much, as you see right here. Initial tackle from Davidson, for me, probably the best out of the back four. I thought he did okay. Obviously did not have to deal with the likes of Riise on his side. If you look at Tom Hogley, obviously he doesn't venture forward as much, but I thought that Davidson did a decent job so far. If I had to pick one out of the back four, he would be the one for me, maybe with the exception of that last play.
So Riise has already produced at one moment a set piece from just this sort of area. Will it be Pedersen who gets the starring role this time? It's Morten Gams Pedersen, and it's a beauty. 4-0. Norway home and dry, sitting pretty. And it's all rather ugly for the Scots.
Well, no, now you have Riise, you have Pedersen. I don't know if you want to concede these. Once again, no chance for the goalkeeper right there, as you see it here. Stuck. Knew exactly that he was beaten the moment he saw that ball leave his foot, I think. And Scotland once again conceded late in the first half, conceding late in the second half. That doesn't matter really. 4-0. This could have been 6 or 7 if you consider the fact that John Carews' goal did not count. That was in, and obviously 2 or 3 other very, very good chances for Norway.
Well, 2 sublime finishes from the Blackburn Rovers man tonight, and Scotland are put out of their misery. They're not out of contention yet in World Cup qualification, but their task has been made a whole lot harder tonight after this resounding defeat at the hands of Egil Olsen's Norway. Pedersen with 2, And John Arna also on target, a goal also for Erik Hoosterklep. It was one-way traffic really from about the 20-minute mark of this game.
Well, it was, and before the game, if you had to point to players from Norway that were going to be significant, of course you would talk about Riise, of course you would talk about Pedersen, and you would talk about John Kiruen. All feature, all scored. Obviously, such important players for that team, and I think for Scotland, obviously didn't go according to script. But really, I don't think anyone thought that this was going to be as easy as it was for Norway. As I have mentioned, this could have and should have been a lot more than 4-0.
David Marshall back in goal for Scotland after 5 years in the international wilderness. Conceded 4 last time out and saw 4 fly past him again. Nothing he could do about any of them, mind you, as this was a comprehensive display by Egil Olsen's men. It might not be enough to get them to South Africa, but hope has been rekindled at least in Norway. It's their first victory in Group 9, and they will push on now and look for 2 more in their last 2 group games.
Well, it was a must-win situation for Norway. They knew that. They knew the pressure was on, and they delivered here. And as you mentioned, Olsen, perhaps he is the lucky one here, and he's the man that's going to get them there ultimately. Still a lot to do for them, and but this is a good, this is a good start, I suppose. Psychologically, this is going to go a long way for them.
Plenty to ponder for the Tartan Army. If it is to be South Africa for Scotland, will have to be done at home at Hampden. Macedonia up next for them on that September the 6th. We'll have to move on, forget about this in a hurry. And then with the Dutch to follow, they still have a chance of snatching that runners-up spot behind Holland, who have long since qualified. But this is a night to forget for those who've travelled north from Scotland. Certainly not the script that was written by the Tartan Army or by George Burley prior to kick-off here tonight. 2 goals in the first half and 2 in the second, leaving the final score reading at Norway 4, Scotland 0. We'll be back with some final thoughts from Oslo after these words.
Game with a dramatic comeback, putting away Duke 95-78.
Does it sound funny to anybody else to say Seton Hall is going to play for a national championship? What a tremendous story this is.